If someone had told me 10 years ago that I'd one day be the man who stood up at his wife's 50th birthday party and exposed her affair with a PowerPoint presentation and a cake, I would have laughed it off and called them insane. But life has this twisted sense of humor, doesn't it? It creeps up on you with these sharp turns you never see coming, and by the time you do, you're either too far down the road to turn back, or you're lying face first in the wreckage, trying to figure out how the hell you got there. Let me start from the beginning, or at least, a beginning that makes sense. My name's David Whitaker. I'm 52 years old now, divorced, and living in a small rental house just outside of Denver. I work in infrastructure management. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills, and for the longest time, it gave me purpose. Lisa and I met back in 1996. We were both fresh out of college, full of that unearned confidence 20-somethings carry like a second skin. She was studying early childhood education, and I had just landed my first real job setting up networks for local businesses. We met at a friend's 4th of July barbecue, one of those hazy beer-soaked summer nights that smelled like grilled corn and bad decisions. Lisa was wearing this red sundress and had this laugh that made everyone around her lean in just to be part of the moment. We hit it off instantly. There was no game, no chase, just two people who couldn't stop talking. We got married 3 years later, in June of '99. It was a small ceremony at Cherry Creek Park, just family and close friends. Nothing extravagant, but it felt right. She cried during her vows. So did I, though I blamed it on the heat. Our daughter Rachel came along in 2003. I remember holding her for the first time, this tiny wrinkled crying bundle of life, and feeling like the world had shifted beneath my feet. Everything I did from that point on, I did for them. We weren't perfect, of course. No couple is. But for a long time, we were solid. We had routines, traditions, shared dreams. We did the Sunday morning pancakes, the annual camping trip to Steamboat Springs, the late-night Netflix binges with a bottle of wine. We'd been through our fair share of stress, layoffs, a miscarriage in 2005, financial strain during the 2008 recession, but we always managed to pull through. I thought we were unbreakable, but somewhere along the way, something shifted. And the worst part, I didn't see it happen. Looking back now, I can't help but replay those moments I brushed off, like when Lisa stopped laughing at my dumb jokes, or when she started staying out later with her book club, when she bought new lingerie but never wore it around me, when she suddenly got interested in going to the gym, not with me, but with a friend from school. At the time, I chalked it up to midlife changes. I mean, we all go through them, don't we? You hit your late 40s and start questioning your worth, your choices, your body. Lisa had mentioned feeling invisible lately, especially as Rachel grew older and more independent. I tried to be supportive. I really did. I encouraged her to find new hobbies, to take weekends for herself. I even cut back on hours at work, which was no small feat in my industry, just so we could spend more time together. But somehow, despite all that, the distance between us kept growing, and I kept pretending not to notice. One evening, about a year before her birthday, I came home early from a cancelled client meeting. It was around 3:30 p.m., and I expected to find Lisa in the kitchen, maybe prepping dinner, or scrolling through Pinterest like she always did. Instead, the house was silent, too silent. Her purse was still on the counter, her keys were in the bowl, but she wasn't home. I called her. No answer. Sent a text. No reply. An hour later she came in through the back door, hair tousled, cheeks flushed, claiming she'd gone on a long walk and forgot her phone. At the time, I didn't question it. Why would I? We'd been married over 2 decades. She'd never given me a real reason not to trust her, and yet something about the way she said it, too rehearsed, too casual, it nagged at me. That feeling grew slowly over the months. Her moods fluctuated, warm and affectionate one week, cold and distant the next. She got a new phone and refused to share the passcode, claiming she wanted privacy. We stopped having sex altogether. She started sleeping with her back to me. It was like I was living with a ghost of the woman I once loved. And still, I tried to believe it was just a phase. That's the thing about long-term relationships. You build up this incredible tolerance for denial. You want to believe in the version of your life you've worked so hard to build. Even when the walls are crumbling around you, you hold the roof up with your bare hands and pretend the storm outside isn't real. I wish I could say there was a single moment when everything clicked into place. A dramatic reveal, a hidden clue. But the truth is, it wasn't until Rachel came to me, hesitant, confused, that I truly opened my eyes. It was a Sunday evening, in late August, 2022. I remember the date because we'd just come back from visiting my mother's grave. She passed during the peak of COVID, and it had become tradition for Rachel and me to bring sunflowers every year. We were sitting on the porch, sipping iced tea, when she looked at me with those big brown eyes that mirrored her mother's. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said. "It's about Mom. Do you think she's happy?" The question caught me off guard. I asked her why, and she hesitated, picking at the hem of her hoodie. Eventually she admitted that she'd overheard Lisa on the phone late at night, laughing, whispers, conversations that didn't sound like they were meant for me. She said something about feeling alive again, Rachel said, and that she didn't want to keep hiding. I felt a pit form in my stomach, but even then, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told Rachel not to worry, that relationships go through rough patches, that maybe Lisa was venting to a friend, but the seed was planted, and seeds, when watered with doubt, grow quickly. A week later, Lisa left her phone on the bathroom counter while she showered. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling anymore. I picked up the phone. It was unlocked. I didn't have to search long. Messages, dozens of them, images, videos, her with someone I didn't recognize at first, a man about our age, with a graying beard and smug smile. They talked about things I wish I could erase from my memory, jokes about me, plans to meet, how much she missed his hands, how much better he made her feel. My hands shook as I scrolled. Rage, nausea, disbelief. And then I saw his name, Travis. I froze. Travis used to work for me. I hired him back in 2017. He was a good tech, lazy, but skilled. I had to lay him off in 2020 during the pandemic when our contracts dried up. I remember feeling guilty about it, even gave him a generous severance. And now, he was sleeping with my wife. The betrayal hit on two fronts, personal and professional. It was like finding out you'd been robbed by someone you once gave a job to, someone you trusted enough to sit across your dinner table. I didn't confront Lisa that night. I didn't sleep either. I just lay there in the dark, listening to the shallow rhythm of her breath, wondering how long she'd been lying to me, wondering how much of our life had been real, wondering if I'd somehow failed as a husband, or if she had simply given up without telling me. That's when the idea began to form, a slow burning ember in the wreckage of my heart. Her 50th birthday was coming up in a few weeks. She'd been planning this big party for months, a catered event, live music, all our friends and family. She was so excited. She wanted speeches. She wanted memories. She wanted love. And for the first time in my life, I wanted revenge. The days between discovering Lisa's affair and her 50th birthday party passed like a nightmare in slow motion. Every morning, I woke up, my mind replayed those damning messages over and over, like a broken record I couldn't turn off. I tried to pretend I was okay, but inside I was a mess. A hurricane of anger, betrayal, shame, and heartbreak all wrapped into one. I kept asking myself the same question: how did it get this far without me knowing? Had I been so wrapped up in work that I missed the signs? Was it something I did? Or worse, something I didn't do? I started digging through memories, searching for clues. I remembered the nights Lisa came home smelling different, the hushed phone calls she took in the other room, the little white lies that added up like a bad math problem. I felt sick, but I also felt something else, a burning need to make her understand what she'd done, not just to me, but to Rachel, to our family, to everything we built. And I knew the best way to do that was in front of everyone who mattered. That birthday party was supposed to be a celebration, her big day, a milestone. 50 years of life, laughter and love. But in my mind, it became the perfect stage for exposing the truth. So I started planning. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I'm quiet, reserved. I avoid drama, but when someone you love betrays you like that, something inside you snaps. The pain morphs into a kind of clarity. You see things in black and white, right and wrong, truth and lies. I spent nights crafting a PowerPoint presentation. Sounds ridiculous, I know, but it felt like the only way to lay it all bare. I wanted to show everyone what Lisa was hiding, the texts, the photos, the conversations with Travis. The evidence was damning, and I had screenshots that would make anyone's blood boil. But as I worked on it, something unexpected happened. I started to remember the good times. The first time we danced in the kitchen, Lisa's tearful smile, when Rachel took her first steps, the vacations we took that felt like little slices of heaven. I realized that this wasn't just about shaming her or tearing her down. It was about showing the contrast, the love we once had versus the deception she chose. So I decided to open the presentation with those memories, stories of us, our life, our love. I wanted the room to feel the weight of what she'd lost before I pulled the rug out from under her. The night of the party came fast. The house was packed with friends and family, familiar faces, some laughing, some wiping tears during the heartfelt speeches. Lisa was radiant, glowing even, surrounded by people who loved her. For a moment, I felt a stab of guilt. This was supposed to be her happy day. Was I about to ruin it all? But then I remembered the countless nights I'd spent wondering if she was lying beside me, or if her heart was somewhere else entirely. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up, my hands trembling. I started with the stories, how we met, our wedding day, the birth of Rachel, the trips, the quiet moments that made life worth living. The room grew quiet, the air thick with nostalgia. Some people smiled, some nodded, and Lisa's eyes glistened with tears. Then I clicked the remote. The screen changed. Messages, pictures, videos, the digital proof of her betrayal, projected for all to see. Gasps filled the room. Faces turned pale. Some people whispered, others stared in disbelief. Lisa froze, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I felt a cold calm settle over me, like a dam breaking inside. And then came the cake. Lisa had ordered this beautiful custom-made cake, a 3-tiered masterpiece, with delicate roses, and her name written in elegant script. But the caterer had no idea it wasn't the original cake they'd brought in, because I'd replaced it. The cake that came out was a bold, explicit display of her affair, images that made the room fall silent again. The contrast was brutal, the beautiful facade shattered by ugly truth. I told everyone to sing happy birthday to Lisa. She tried to smile through tears, but it was clear she was devastated. And then I handed her the divorce papers. The room was frozen in shock. I don't think I've ever seen someone break down so completely in front of a crowd. Tears streamed down her face. She dropped to her knees, her voice barely audible as she begged for forgiveness. But the damage was done. After that night, everything changed. The morning after the party, the silence in the house was deafening, the kind of silence that screams at you with its emptiness. Lisa was gone, packed a small bag and left before dawn. The air still carried the scent of the party, spilled wine, the faint sweetness of the cake I had sabotaged, and a heaviness I couldn't shake. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the divorce papers she hadn't signed yet, but would soon. My hands trembled as I tried to piece together what the hell just happened. The party felt like a lifetime ago, but also like it had happened yesterday. The way the room shifted from celebration to confrontation, how friends' faces flickered from joy to horror, it was surreal. Some hugged me afterward, whispering that I had every right. Others avoided my gaze altogether, uncomfortable with the spectacle. Lisa's family, on the other hand, were a different story. They called me angry and appalled. How could I humiliate their daughter like that? They said I'd gone too far, that some things should be private, even if painful. They accused me of cruelty, of breaking apart a family in public for the sake of vengeance. At first their words stung. I'm not proud of how far I went. I know I shattered more than just a marriage that night, but part of me felt justified. How could I sit quietly while she shredded our vows and lied to my face for years? Rachel was the hardest part of all. She was caught in the middle, her mother's betrayal, her father's rage. She came to me a few days after the party, eyes red and swollen. I could see the confusion and hurt in her, like she was trying to understand a story that made no sense. She said she felt betrayed twice, first by Lisa's lies, then by the public fallout. I held her as she cried and told her that none of it was her fault, that she was loved, unconditionally, by both of us, no matter what. But even as I reassured her, I knew the cracks were there. The family dinners would never be the same. The holidays would be awkward, strained, filled with whispered conversations behind closed doors. At work, things became complicated too. Some colleagues knew about the party through mutual friends. I could feel their judgment, their awkward glances during meetings. I tried to keep my head down, focus on my projects, but it was hard to pretend that my personal life hadn't exploded like a grenade. I started seeing a therapist a few weeks after. I was hesitant at first. Men don't exactly talk about their feelings, right? But I realized I was spiraling, angry all the time, sleepless nights, moments of deep crushing sadness, where I questioned everything about myself. The therapist helped me unpack the layers of pain. The betrayal wasn't just about Lisa cheating, it was about losing the life I thought I had, the future I'd planned for Rachel and me, the trust that had been the foundation of my world. I also wrestled with guilt. Did I push her away? Was my demanding work schedule the reason she sought comfort elsewhere? Lisa claimed so during our divorce proceedings, and part of me wanted to believe it was true, that maybe I wasn't just a victim, but a participant in the breakdown. But ultimately, I had to accept that some things are beyond my control. Legal battles followed. Lisa's family threatened to sue me for defamation and public humiliation. Thankfully, Lisa intervened, telling them she didn't want to drag things through the courts. She admitted to her affair, accepted responsibility, and the threats faded. The divorce was finalized in early 2023. Lisa didn't contest it, and although she expressed regret, it felt hollow to me. I appreciated the remorse, but it couldn't undo the years of lies, or the night I stood before everyone to lay it bare. Through it all, Rachel remained my anchor. I promised myself I'd protect her from the fallout, shield her from the bitterness that threatened to consume us. Some days I succeeded, others, I faltered. I started dating again tentatively, but nothing serious. I wasn't ready to open that part of myself back up. Instead, I focused on small things, morning runs in the foothills, reconnecting with old friends, late-night calls with my sister, things that reminded me I still existed outside the wreckage. There were dark moments too, nights when I felt utterly alone, when the pain felt too much to bear. I had to fight the voice that whispered dangerous thoughts, the voice that said maybe the world would be better without me. But I never let that voice win. Rachel was my light, my reason. Looking back now, I don't think anyone who hasn't been through it can fully understand what that kind of betrayal feels like. The way it shakes you to your core, makes you question your worth, your judgment, your very identity. The anger fades with time, but the scars stay. After the storm had passed, I found myself standing in the ruins of a life I thought was solid. The house felt emptier, the silence louder, but somewhere beneath the rubble, a small flicker of something stubborn and fierce began to glow. It wasn't immediate. Healing never is. The days after the divorce were the hardest, lonely, confusing, and raw. But slowly I realized that if I wanted to move forward, I had to reclaim my narrative. I couldn't let Lisa's betrayal define me forever. The first step was reclaiming myself. I started by waking up early, lacing up my running shoes, and hitting the trails near my home. The rhythm of my feet pounding the dirt, the cold morning air filling my lungs, became a meditation. I'd been so consumed by anger and pain that I forgot what it felt like to simply be, to breathe, to exist outside the chaos. I joined a local hiking group, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. The camaraderie of strangers who became friends reminded me that life still held beauty and connection. Work became my refuge too. I threw myself into projects, not as an escape, but as a way to rebuild my confidence. I began mentoring younger colleagues, sharing not just technical know-how, but lessons about resilience and integrity. But the desire for revenge, the part of me that still burned with fury, never quite went away. I thought about Travis often, the man who'd not only betrayed me personally, but had the audacity to show up at Lisa's party, smug and unrepentant. I imagined calling him out, confronting him face to face, making him feel the sting of his betrayal. But I realized that stooping to his level wouldn't bring me peace. It would only chain me to the past longer. Instead, I chose a different kind of victory. I focused on being the best father I could be to Rachel. I was honest with her about the past, but always careful to shield her from the bitterness. I wanted her to grow up understanding that love isn't always perfect, but it's worth fighting for. I sought therapy not just to unpack the pain, but to learn how to forgive, not necessarily Lisa or Travis, but myself. Forgive myself for not seeing the signs, for letting my work consume me, for the ways I'd unknowingly contributed to the distance between us. There were days when forgiveness felt impossible, when the memories came crashing back like tidal waves. But each time I took a breath, reminded myself that healing is a process, not a destination. One afternoon, a few months after the divorce was finalized, Lisa reached out. Her message was simple, an apology. Not just for the affair, but for the years of deceit, for the pain she caused me and Rachel. I won't lie. I debated whether to respond. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut forever. Another part wanted closure, a final chapter written with honesty. I wrote back, acknowledging her apology, but setting clear boundaries. We needed to co-parent, but that was where our connection ended. That exchange, though brief, marked a turning point. It was the moment I realized I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor. I began exploring new relationships, not out of loneliness, but out of hope. I met people who didn't carry the baggage of my past, who saw me as whole despite my scars, and maybe most importantly, I started dreaming again. Dreaming of a life that wasn't defined by betrayal or pain, but by growth, love and resilience. I won't pretend it was easy. Some nights I still stare at the ceiling, haunted by what could have been. The family dinners, the shared anniversaries, the future I imagined with Lisa and Rachel. But then I look at Rachel's face, the sparkle in her eyes, and I know that every step I've taken, every painful moment has led me here, to a place where I'm stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace whatever comes next. It's strange how life has a way of coming full circle. The man who once stood in a room full of people, tearing down the walls of a marriage with a PowerPoint and a scandalous cake, now finds himself quietly rebuilding a new kind of life, piece by piece, moment by moment. In the months and years since that fateful birthday, I've learned that closure isn't about dramatic finales or public reckonings. It's about the quiet moments no one sees, the small victories you celebrate with yourself when no one else is watching. There was a day, not long ago, when Rachel and I sat on the porch, just like we did that August evening when she first asked if her mother was happy. But this time the air was lighter. We laughed over old stories, shared hopes for the future, and planned a hiking trip for the coming weekend. The wounds were still there, beneath the surface, but they no longer defined us. Lisa has become a chapter in my past, a painful one, but a chapter nonetheless. I don't wish her harm. I've come to understand that people are complicated, flawed, and sometimes they break the ones they love. I've forgiven her in my own way, not because I condone what she did, but because holding on to that bitterness only hurt me. My daughter has grown into a strong, empathetic young woman, shaped by everything she's seen and felt. She's taught me as much about resilience as any therapist or self-help book ever could. Work, once a source of stress and distraction, is now a place where I find purpose and pride. I mentor others not just in technology, but in life's harder lessons, about integrity, about facing adversity with courage. I even found love again, not the kind that burns fast and bright, but the kind that slowly grows steady and warm. It's a reminder that even after the deepest betrayals, hearts can heal and open anew. I won't pretend the scars have vanished. They are part of my story, the invisible threads woven into who I am. Some days they ache. Some days they remind me to be kinder, to cherish what I have, and to never take trust for granted. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away from this story, it's this: life is messy, painful, and unpredictable. We are not defined by the wounds inflicted on us, but by how we choose to rise from them. So, to anyone out there grappling with betrayal, heartbreak, or the shattering of your world, know that you're not alone. The road ahead may be long and uncertain, but there is hope, there is light, and there is a future waiting to be built, one honest step at a time. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been the hardest and most important journey of my life.